Good evening. It is 5:15 this Monday, November 14th, and the Carroll City Council is now in session. Would you all please join me and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, before us we have tonight's agenda. All are present. Under the consent agenda, it reads as follows. It would be approval of minutes of the October 24th and November 2nd meetings, approval of bills and claims. We have two liquor permits to approve. The first one is a renewal of a Class C beer permit with Class B native wine permit and Sunday sales with Carroll Country Store 2. And the next one is a renewal of a Class C liquor license with outdoor sales, Don Roy's Inc., DBA The Hub, Piranha Club. Following that, we have one infill housing incentive application that's in our packets. We have a state annual financial report for fiscal year 22, City Street financial report for fiscal year 22, an annual urban renewal report for fiscal year 22, a street maintenance facility purchase of a wheel lift system. Is there anything else on the consent agenda? Any questions on tonight's consent agenda? And if not, I'd seek a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Tom and a second by JJ to approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Fordnero.
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Schreck.
Yes.
Seaman.
Yes.
Base.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Item number 4 on tonight's agenda is oral requests and communications from the audience. This is an opportunity of members of the public to approach the council and bring up an issue that is not on tonight's agenda. And I've been told that there is one tonight. Is that correct? Okay. Randy, you want to approach, please? Name and address, please.
Randy Toff, 708 North Adams. I'd like to address the council on the subject of the off-street parking in the 700 block of Adams Street. Here, the parking is an integral part of the neighborhood, and to not have it would cause several safety concerns. First of all, there are 4 stops during the day of school buses. Occasionally, the buses actually pull onto the parking with the door at the carriage walk, allowing immediate access by children from multiple blocks in the area. The apartment building on the west side of Adams has cars that I assume are visitors parked on the east side. In addition, there are numerous other folks that use the parking. A very small contingent of the total vehicles are shown in these pictures. The dot thing.
Is the laser working?
Yes.
Okay.
We have some light construction, some visitors to numerous properties, additional visitors, some heavy construction. Even the federal government gets in on it. At one-on-one teaching, which includes a registered daycare, there are presently 15 enrolled children, plus a rotating number of additional tutoring clients. Now, those children, if the parking wasn't there, parents would be in the street, parking on the other side would leave a lane here that's not safe for the children to get in and out of their vehicles. Last month, council was fretting about no parking on one side of Birch Street. Now you're duplicating an identical problem on a much, much busier street. At what point will we lose parking on one side of Adams? The properties of Vela Bank IT Building, 101 Teaching, and 714 North Adams are all commercial properties. The other 2 are transitional, which would allow them to have businesses there, of which one has been a bed and breakfast as of late. These all beg for off-street parking, and the property owners all agree. With that in mind, it appears the 600 block off-street parking is being spared, as is the 1000 block, the 1100 block. What's good for one taxpayer should be good for all. In speaking to the design engineer, the meeting that guided them to delete the parking indicated the reasoning was cost. Too prohibitive were the words. Upon measuring the block, I used the estimate numbers the engineer said were used on the entire project. These are for reworking the subbase, 6 inches of compacted base and 8 inches of concrete. 345 feet long, 10-foot wide, 3450 square feet, divided by 9, gives you the number of feet per square yard, 383.33 square yards times $77 per square yard. The cost from the engineer makes the total cost $29,516.67. That's hardly lunch money on this project. Plus, you're offering $25,000 plus if some individual builds a house. If that is out of your budget, then cut out the 5 foot along the street and fill it back in. So then the amount is $14,758.33. Over the year of the project, the workers will spend more than that on morning break. Please address this as a council and consider leaving the off-street parking for the neighborhood and the community to use as they are now. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Your comments are duly noted. Okay, item number 5 under ordinances tonight is the second reading of the ATV, golf cart, UTV, and snowmobile ordinance discussion. And Brad,
Thank
turn
you,
it
Mayor.
over to you.
The last meeting on the 24th, we had the first reading and passage of the first reading for the UTV, ATV, golf cart, et cetera ordinance. Since that time, I have not had any feedback from anyone in the public. At this point, I would recommend that we go ahead and waive the third reading, approve the second, and pass this ordinance into our code.
Very good. Any questions for Brad? Again, this is our second reading, so this is the second time. Well, we had a discussion first.
First is a discussion
And then,
time. Yes,
and then we
correct.
had the first reading just 2 weeks ago. So, there's any questions for Brad at this time? Hearing none. The recommendation is to, I believe, to approve the second reading and waive the third is Brad's recommendation. Does anybody differ with that? If not, I'd seek a motion to do so.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the second reading of the ATV ordinance. I know I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but it's going to be a long meeting as it is. So we've got a motion by Carolyn and a second by, that was Kyle, wasn't it? And was that also to waive the third?
Yep.
And so, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bornero?
Yes.
Schreck?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Base?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Perfect, thank you. And it's my understanding we'd probably need to adopt that next. So is there a motion to adopt that ordinance, changing to section 75?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by JJ, a second by, I think it was Kyle?
Yep.
Yep. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dirks?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Schreck? Yes. Base?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Bornero?
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Item under 5B in ordinances is Carroll Municipal Golf Course fees and charges, a proposed rate increase, and I'll turn that over to Chad.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Last week, the Park Rec Culture Advisory Board had our meeting to discuss the rates for the Carroll Municipal Golf Course. Just looking at all of the expenditures that we've had coming down the pipe. Before we start discussing those increases, on the memo, there's a couple of numbers I'd like to point out. Under members, it says 403, that is overall memberships. So as of right now, our member numbers for actual members, it's just historically how they've laid that out, is closer to 603 for the 2023 season. Revenue also has 2 months of month-to-month payments yet to come in, totaling just over 20,000. So we're presenting a 5% rate increase across the board on all season passes. For members that choose to do month-to-month plan, this averages out to about just under $3 a month on our 12-month program. We also had a discussion to make it easier for collecting green fees by setting weekend and weekday rates at the exact same rate. Just easier on the front end and back end for all involved. This proposed rate increase would not affect carts or seasonal cart rentals. The board discussed not raising those fees until we have a reason to justify for those rate increases. Carts aren't exactly in the best shape out there right now, but hopefully we can get that taken care of. So our recommendation is for council to discuss policy number 802, the municipal golf course fees starting for the 2023 season. I'd have to answer any questions.
Perfect, thank you, Chad. Any questions for Chad?
When's the last time you had a rate increase?
2020. Or the 2020 season.
One of the duties of the Park and Rec Board is to do a lot of this research. And they've done it, and I sat in on their meeting, and they talked it over quite lengthily, and I recommend that we follow what they did their research on.
Can I take that as a motion?
You can.
I'll second that.
Very well, we have a motion and a second to approve the proposed,
Well, this is an ordinance, so.
oh, it's an ordinance?
It's an ordinance.
So can we,
So do you want to waive 1, 2, or all 3 readings, or you just want to do the first one? Okay.
yeah, for first reading, yep,
Okay.
perfect, yep. So we have a motion and a second for the first reading of the proposed rate increase.
Dirks
Oh.
and then Bauer. right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
any further discussion?
I have one question for you. So looking back at your data on this, where we make money and you don't make money, looking back on these years of 2016, 2014, what are we doing different that we're not doing now, especially 6 years in a row? Is this equipment purchases?
A
That we're
lot of it
basically doing?
are capital improvement projects.
Okay. That's,
Like I can say right now that, you know, this past year, we budgeted 160 to go towards the well project. So you take 506 and minus it by 160.
yeah, I'm just asking, I'm
Yeah.
curious.
The 506 number that's at the bottom is based on budget for calendar years. So, I mean, obviously, we're gonna come in under that. But it's just kind of a fiscal outlook for this season.
Anything else? Any further discussion? Still have a motion and a second on the table. Nothing else? Roll call, please.
Base? Yes. Dirks?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Schreck? Yes. Cordero?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Perfect, thank you. We'll set the second reading for 2 weeks. Perfect. Okay, under item number 6 tonight, under resolutions, we have a Rolling Hills South Condominiums Urban Renewal Plan. We had a little bit of discussion about this 2 weeks ago. And then I have 528, Laura. We will go ahead and open up the public hearing for the Rolling Hills South Condominium Urban Renewal Plan. Laura?
Yes, thank you, Mark. So tonight, council, this is the time for the public hearing on this resolution to reinstitute the agreement that we have with 704 Development Corporation. If you'll recall, council entered into an agreement with them back in 2018 to develop an area and put in some housing. Due to a number of constraints, they were not able to complete it on time of what was laid out in the original agreement. So this is to reinstitute that. Then that way, the other requirements of the agreement says that the city would pay a $72,000 incentive through the form of a TIF rebate. The public hearing was published as required. It was published on Friday, October 28th. And so tonight is the time for the public hearing and then council consideration and approval of the resolution to reinstitute the development agreement with 704 Development Corp.
Perfect. Okay, we had visited quite a little bit about this 2 weeks ago, but if there's any questions for Laura, I'd entertain them now. Are there any? Essentially, we're just going to extend the old existing agreement,
Yep, the
essentially
only
what
thing
we're
that
going to
changed
do.
was the completion date.
Right. Okay, no other questions. With that, there's nothing else. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. I'm showing 5:30.
Okay.
And then, so now we would be in order, if the recommendation is for the council to approve resolution authorizing execution of the agreement to reinstitute the agreement for private development with 704. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Perfect. We have a motion and a second, Carolyn and Kyle, to reinstitute the agreement for 704. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Seaman,
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Bordenaro,
Yes.
Shrek.
Yes.
Base.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Very good, thank you. And then, Laura, you're on a roll. We have under resolutions, item B, which is fiscal year '23 Budget Amendment 1. And let's call it 531. We'll open the public hearing for that budget amendment. And Laura, I'll turn it back over to you again.
Yes, thank you, Mark. So tonight is the time for the public hearing on our first budget amendment of fiscal '23. The last council meeting, you were presented with the number of items which are also included with this memo. I will not go through each one of them, but if you do have a specific question about any particular one, let me know. In general, these items are all items that were a part of our fiscal '22 budget that were not completed as of the end of that fiscal year, which ended on June 30th of 2022. With one exception where I am including in here showing the expenditure of some of the ARPA funds. At the time that we had put together the fiscal '22 budget, we did not have anything allocated, but council since then has taken some action to allocate some of those funds. So those expenditures are being shown in this budget amendment. The notice of the public hearing was published as in accordance with state code. It was published on Friday, October 28th. So tonight is the time for the public hearing. And then at close of the public hearing, approval of the resolution to approve this budget amendment.
Very good. And again, as Laura outlined, we went over this a couple weeks ago, what the amendment is. And I would entertain any questions that you have for Laura on the budget amendment. Any from the council, public, anybody online? I guess I probably should ask that the first time, but we
No.
do have some people online or no?
Watching, but they can't
Okay,
participate. They're
okay,
just viewing
that's right,
only.
because
Yes.
we don't have the Zoom anymore.
Yep.
All right, perfect, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing then at 5:33, Laura. And then the recommendation, as you heard from Laura, is the approval of the budget amendment number 1, a resolution. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Tom? Say we have a motion from Tom and a second from Laverne. Okay. For a resolution to amend the current budget fiscal year '23. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bauer.
Yes.
Bordenaro.
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Seaman.
Yes.
Base. Yes. Shrek.
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Okay, you're still in the batter's box. We got item number C, an agreement with Western Iowa Networks, Breda Telephone Company, annual tax increment finance appropriations resolution. Laura?
Yes, thank you, Mark. This is a resolution for what we call the annual appropriations. We have dealt with this with another developer in town, but as a way of some background information, council did enter into a development agreement with BTC, or Western Iowa Networks, back in 2020 for them to build their new building as well as put in some public improvements. Those items have been completed. So they have held up their end of the deal. Now that the other end, the council's side of the agreement is to rebate to them the cost of those public improvements, which the total cost was $172,394.12. The agreement calls for this amount to be repaid through a TIF rebate agreement over 6 consecutive semi-annual payments over 3 fiscal years. So what this does tonight is a resolution that'll approve this annual appropriations so the debt can be certified and we can collect the tax or the TIF in that area to repay them.
Okay. Any questions once again for Laura? I have none, pretty straightforward. Well, if we're going to move it right along, then I would seek a motion to approve the resolution to approve the annual tax increment finance appropriation with BTC doing business as Western Iowa Network fiscal year 24. Is there a motion to that effect?
Second.
Motion by JJ and a second by Kyle to approve annual tax increment financing appropriations for fiscal year 24 for Breda Telephone. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Seaman,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Base. Yes. Bornero,
Yes.
Shrek. Yes. Resolution is approved.
Thank you. Okay, you're off the hook for now. We're going to move on to Randy. Item D is water distribution main replacements, professional service agreement. Randy, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Professional services agreement for services related to the development of a water distribution main replacement project has been requested and received from JEO Consulting Group. The proposed agreement includes those professional services for design development and some construction consultation for the water main project that is proposed to include a section of along US 30 from Grant Road to 1,250 feet east of Grant Road. And then on Grant Road, and US 30, and then on Grant Road from US 30 north to 7th Street. And then a short section, 1 block on East Street between 1st Street and 2nd Street. The total compensation included in the agreement is $68,300. That brings the estimated project cost currently to $518,300. The current budget and capital improvement program had identified funding in the amount of $500,000 for the project. Any funding shortfall, once the bids are received and awarded, any funding shortfall would anticipated to be made up from the Water Utility Fund. The project timeframe includes starting immediately and construction through November 15th of 2023. So unless there are any questions, I'd recommend your consideration of approval of the resolution approving the agreement with JEO Consulting Group for the water distribution main improvements at their lump sum cost of $68,300.
Very good. Thank you, Randy. And I'm glad you mentioned the CIP because I was just in there when I was in the office Friday and I was looking up some other things in the capital improvement plan and I ran across it there too. And we're not there yet, but the next item I believe was in there as well, I believe. So
Yep.
Are there any questions for Randy about the sewer project?
I do, Randy.
Yep.
On this, it says construction materials testing, so what does that mean? And letter H down there, and items not included.
Oh, that would be the testing of any material, and mostly in a water main project, it's trench compaction. If there's some pavement replacement, concrete testing, JEO does not do that. That's contracted separately with a testing laboratory.
So, would this be something that we could turn around and get hit with the soil's bad again? We need another $26,000 for a, what's the words I'm looking for?
Oh, normally in water main construction, the soils aren't that bad, but we can run into some soft soils. And we generally include in the list of bid items a unit price for stabilization of the trench. And then it's only used if we encounter unstable trench conditions. And then it's paid for usually by the ton. So,
Thanks.
It's a good question though, Tom, because later on in tonight's agenda, we've got Highway 30 sewer change order, which involved, change order is the word you were looking for, but I mean,
Yep.
it's some bad soil. So it's good question. Glad you brought it up. And so that's not included in there. That's a separate lab fee is essentially what that is.
yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for raising the question. Okay, so you heard the recommendation is to approve services, professional services for the water distribution main replacements at a lump sum cost of $68,300. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Carolyn made the motion and Kyle seconded. Once again, $68,300 to JEO for professional services for the water distribution main replacements. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Base? Yes. Dirks?
Yes.
Shrek? Yes. Seaman?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Bornero?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Thank you. Still on deck. So item number E would be stormwater improvements and another professional services agreement. Randy?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, it's another professional services agreement for stormwater improvements. Has been requested and received from JEO Consulting Group again. This agreement includes scope of professional services necessary for the hydrologic and hydraulic evaluation of a watershed that basically drains upstream of Southgate Road and down to the Middle Raccoon River. So it's in the Rolling Hills area, draining from basically west of Highway 71 to the Middle Raccoon River. The compensation included in the agreement is in the lump sum amount of $36,300. And the budget and capital improvement program includes this project, and it's budgeted through construction currently at $1,750,000 for the storm sewer construction. The timeline on this portion of the project, which is only a study portion, is through May 15th to have a study report back to the city, and it'll be presented to the council. At that time, there will be recommendations for storm sewer improvements, and those will be for your consideration at the time they're identified. Unless there are any questions, I'd recommend your consideration of approval of the contract with JEO Consulting Group for these stormwater improvements at their lump sum cost of $36,300.
Have we had some flooding issues down there in the past in that area?
There have been some localized low point flooding. No homes have been damaged, no property damaged to that extent. But this is one of those watersheds where the original storm sewer certainly was built in the probably late 60s along Southgate Road. And since that time, there's been development to the west, development to the south, so that watershed is developing more impervious area, more storm sewer runoff, and coming down through that original storm sewer system that was built in the 60s. There's a localized low point in it that has surcharged quite a bit. We've been fortunate that it has not entered a home yet. But this project, we're hoping to bring the storm sewer up to date to the current design standards, at least for pipe construction. And then another goal would be to provide an overland flow route for any storm runoff that exceeds that design runoff.
Okay.
Mark, just to give you a little inkling of what I've heard, people along Maine whose backyards are contiguous with the park have contacted me over the years, and they'll be happy to hear that this is going to take place because of all the standing water in the park, behind their homes. There are daycares along there. And so there is a need when we have a lot of rainfall. It just floods that area at times. So
Yeah.
it's a good thing to pursue.
Yeah, I seem to remember that back when it rained.
Back when it rained, yeah.
Back when it used to rain, when it used to rain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good point.
Yeah, yeah. And the raccoon runs back through there
Oh,
too,
yeah,
doesn't
I mean,
Yeah,
it
so
runs along
Yeah.
the whole trail
Yeah,
and park,
so-
yeah.
It's all got to go somewhere. Okay, so you heard the recommendation. The recommendation is to enter into an agreement with JEO for services to study the storm water improvement project at a lump sum cost $36,300. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Carolyn, second by Kyle. $36,300 to JEO. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bauer,
Yes.
Fordnero,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Base,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Shrek. Yes. Resolution is approved.
Perfect, thank you. Item number 7 tonight is for a discussion about sidewalk improvements along Pleasant Ridge Road, Hidden Valley Road, and Timberline. And Randy, once again?
Thank you, Mayor. The plans for the sidewalk, a sidewalk proposed along Pleasant Ridge Road, Hidden Valley, and Timberline have been completed by JEO Consulting Group. As you recall, these were done under the JEO internship program. There was no cost to the city for these to be prepared, but they are complete, and they do illustrate sidewalk along the north side of Pleasant Ridge Road, along the west side of Hidden Valley, and along the south side of Timberline Road. The estimated cost is broken down in your memorandum in the 3 separate segments, with the total being $260,000. At this point, we'd like your review of the plans and direction on proceeding or not with the project development.
Very good. Anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this has been an item under discussion for over a year now, very close to a year. And now it's time for the city council to determine the direction for project development. Who'd like to lead it off?
Well, I'll ask the question, so is anybody under the understanding that the city's supposed to pay for these sidewalks? Are we under the guise that if we approve this, the city goes in and pays for all these sidewalks? Because if we start that, do you go and do the whole town? Or the places that don't have them? Or the places that just did them or built a sidewalk, do we reimburse them, or how does this? Because we were all a little confused last time we talked, so I think we need to get down and figure out where this money's coming from, going from, or going to, or why it's being spent in the first place. I mean, can we talk about that part of it?
That's what we're here for. Yeah, it wasn't until, the last Wednesday's work session, a week ago Wednesday, that, it opened up the, consideration for private pay. And, that was at least any time in a formal session that we've been in that, that came up. So those of you that are here tonight, that is the direction that is for consideration, whether or not it would be available on any one of those 3 streets under private pay, or if the expectation is that the city taxpayers would be responsible for it. So what comments any of you like to make?
I will say the Timberline Road, with a lot of those residents being in here tonight, there's been a petition that was signed with them not wanting that. So whether that's a city pay or something that they pay out of their pocket, that wasn't even on the table before that petition was signed. So, I mean, I would side with them on not putting a sidewalk in or forcing a sidewalk for that street at least. There has been the emails that I've received, there's been a need or a want for Pleasant Ridge Road. And then I've had mixed emails on Hidden Valley. So.
Yeah, we have a petition that was way back March 25th that was from the members of the Timberline that there were several signatures on that were opposed to it on Timberline. And so, once again, the council actually has two decisions to make, is, are we gonna proceed on any one or both or two or three of those streets? And if so, what would be the method of funding?
So I guess at this point, I mean, I'm curious to hear what the people that are here have to say, like, I mean, it ultimately affects them, so can we open it up to
Yeah,
them and allow?
if there's, Marty, would you like to be the first victim?
Oh, this is dangerous.
Name and address, please, Marty.
Marty Halber, 124 West Pleasant Ridge Road. I've been back here over 50 years already, in there. In presenting to you, Mr. Mayor, council members, I go, first of all, thank you in there for all you've done for our community. My wife and I are very lucky. All four of our daughters have come back and they all have businesses here in town. It's because of the things, including trails, that you've done in there, so thank you. The second part is gonna be personal use. I'm sure some of you have seen the fat guy, me, out running in the morning or evening in the bright yellow shirt in there. I've run for over 50 years. I ran when I was in high school, ran when I was in college. I did my last competitive marathon probably before a lot of you were born. Oh, you guys are young. in there. But I want you to know how important it is when you do these trails or sidewalks. The physiology concern for hips and knees and things like that. We need the specs that JEO is presented, and I hope you continue to enforce those regulations. On another personal thing, we have 4 daughters and their families and 11 grandchildren that try to get into our house and all the time and ride bikes and things like that, as many other neighbors do. And if you ever look at Pleasant Ridge Road, you know how dangerous it is to go on that street with all the truck traffic and implements. I'm guilty of that too, because I bring my tractors in and bring semis in and things like that once in a while. But we need something to do, or something to improve it just for their safety. You look at cost, one kid getting injured is not, you can pay for it many times by doing it. I would be willing to put mine in. I need specs, things like that. And because I think it needs to be done. I'll take questions, or it's dangerous talking to Dennis. I can't talk without putting my hands in your mouth.
But you would be okay with private pay, at least on Timberline, or on Pleasant Ridge, Pleasant Ridge?
I want it done. I'm in my 70s.
Okay.
I added my miles up, I've run between 45 and 50,000 miles on these trails and things like that over the years, when I was in college and stuff like that. And I want something safe, and I want to get a good service. I continue, I still run 5 days a week. I still get that.
Thank you. Thanks, Marty. Any questions for Marty while he's up? Thank you.
I don't run anymore, I waddle.
Anyone else? I know you.
You know me.
You're the next victim.
I'm trying to compete with Santa Claus up here.
Name,
Good luck.
name, rank, and serial number.
Matt Credit, 106 West Pleasant Ridge Road. I booked in a couple people, right, in the middle of a couple people. I'll reiterate what Marty says too. Sitting at my house and watching traffic go by on Pleasant Ridge Road, I'm amazed at not only speed, but size of vehicles. And I know that size of vehicles is probably the worst as far as being able to stop for a young child on a bike or a young child on a little go-kart or whatever. So I have no issue paying for the sidewalk in front of my house. I hope everybody comes to that conclusion. I know that in studying street studies a long time ago, when we worked on another development, I know that curves have a very good tendency to slow cars down. So the curve down on Timberline, because it is a tighter curve, has a tendency to slow cars down, which is safer for people walking on the street in that area. I think it's critical on Pleasant Ridge Road. I don't know about the other two roads, but I do know that Pleasant Ridge Road would and should have a sidewalk on it just because of the young kids, so. Any questions, or thank you for your time, so.
Do you have a feel for your other neighbors?
Well, Marty and I have talked about it,
Yeah.
we were ready to put it in, so, I do not. There's, three other neighbors, they can speak for themselves. I don't know how you work it out. I know there's areas of town where you could find, man, if we just had one more block of sidewalk here, it would tie something together, and then how do you incentivize that? If you wanted to incentivize that as a city to make it more functional as a community for walking sidewalks. That's a question for you guys. That's why you guys get paid the big bucks, so, but I do not, so.
What I worry about is two people do it, one don't,
Sidewalk
and another one does.
Thank you.
You know, so how do we handle that? That's my concern. Now, if everybody agrees on it to pay for it, and I agree, Pleasant Ridge is a busy street, it needs to be done. But how do we handle the fact that somebody, you got 5 people? Is that what we're
Yes,
looking
it's
at?
5.
One of those doesn't wanna do it,
That,
you know?
that's a good thing to talk about.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah.
That's why we get the big bucks.
Thank you.
You know, it's a little different from when you build a house, you know that a sidewalk's gonna be in front of your home, and you plan on building that house knowing that. These houses are there, and now we're deciding to do it, so, you know, it's a tough call on this. You know, if we make them pay or not, do we make them do it? That's a big question, one way or the other.
Marty, go ahead.
Can I approach you?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Marty Elber again. That's a really good question, Laverne, in there. And I think we're lucky enough in Pleasant Ridge Road, we have a wonderful neighbor to our east that already has their sidewalk in. We could just continue it through Matt's and mine if the others don't agree. We've got a couple more blocks, or kind of long blocks in our area that have extended, and it's provided a lot of safety already for the kids that are going up and down there.
Thank you. You know, I'm just gonna dovetail off that you know, I gave that a little bit of thought that, you know, who does it and who doesn't. You know, if we have a couple willing volunteers to do it, perhaps that might naturally incentivize the others to do it once they see the benefit of having it. And with Matt, you know, scooping all the sidewalks all the way up to the corner, Matt, yeah, he got that, but,
Snow blower for it.
you know, that,
He uses my tractor.
you know, it might, you know, naturally incentivize the others to do so. And, you know, I don't see that being, you know, a huge problem and actually something that might just stimulate, you know, sidewalks there. Just my thoughts.
Give us the engineering specs and we'll get it done.
We got them.
You know, and
Randy?
I want, and those are very important because when the others come and you want to hook on,
Right.
dovetails in.
Right, and if it's private pay, I mean, anything to, and work, the city is providing the engineering. I mean, in terms of a liability issue or anything that I'm not thinking of in black and white outside of the envelope, is there anything that you care to comment about that, Randy?
I would think that, I don't know for sure, but I would think that liability wouldn't be any different under any circumstances, as long as it's built to the requirements
Yeah.
of building a sidewalk.
And it's all just code, so it's all gonna have the 3 degrees of fall off, and then when you get to the corner, it's gotta have the ADA. I forget who lives on the corner there, but.
I do.
Thank you. Okay, and so there'd be an ADA requirement for you, that's that steel plate, well, that's not steel anymore, is it concrete?
Steel.
Plated in?
It's
You know,
steel.
would be, yeah, steel plate, so, would be the only other consideration for that. So then, it's just how many linear feet of sidewalk that's in front of your property line that you'd have to put in, you know, at your expense.
I need the specs, like in my driveway now, needs to be replaced or changed.
But we're still willing to share that and make it available. It's a public record already, if you know how to read, which I don't, but I know how to, I know how to write a check, that's about it, so.
My excuse.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Yes, young lady. Name and address, please.
My name is Sarah Sturm, and I live at 222 West Pleasant Ridge Road.
And you're
I
on the
live-
corner,
I live on
okay.
the corner.
Okay.
My husband and I moved to Carroll 3.5 years ago. This was the first property that we moved into as a married couple. My husband is from Auburn, and I'm from the great state of New Mexico. So I think one of the things that I would say in light of this is that I have had 4 neighborhood neighbors who have approached me, who have asked that it be okay that their children go through my yard. And I think that that right there speaks for itself. So we recognize that living on a corner, that means that we have a larger sidewalk with an ADA approved corner, but we also attract a lot. So from where we live, we have 3 little girls that live directly across the street, 1 little girl that lives directly behind. The neighbor across from them has 4 children, and the neighbor directly across from us on the south side has 3 children. Around our premise is nothing but children under the age of 10, and all of them getting out of the bus regularly, multiple months in a row, go through my yard because their parents feel that it's unsafe when they get out of their bus. And so for us, it's critical. We don't have children ourselves. We have a dog. And although I don't try to compete with Marty's Miles, people don't know me by my name, but they do know me by my 2 laps. So I would greatly, I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about it. Normally it would be my husband who would be standing here. But I think that being new to this area and recognizing that these are homes that have been there for a really long time, several of those neighbors who still live in those homes, they've talked about the transitions of this community and the development of those homes and how it's being brought back to life by young families moving in. And if that's the way we're moving and we want to acknowledge that and we want to give praise to those families who are bringing growth into our community, then our concern should be the safety of their children.
And Sarah, to be clear, I know the neighbors you're talking about because they've all talked to me with all the children. The one is on the corner of Hidden Valley and West Pleasant Ridge. The others are all on Hidden Valley.
Two of them, yes.
Yes, that you mentioned.
That is
Yes,
correct.
Yeah,
That go through my yard.
right,
Yeah.
to the north of you and across the street on Hidden Valley.
Yes.
To the west of you. Okay,
Yes.
just so I get it.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
it is the 2 families that live on Hidden Valley who have sought approval for their children to go through my yard.
Yeah, right.
Can you tell me how many homes are in Hidden Valley?
On Hidden Valley? 5, well, if you include the corner, it's 6.
6 homes. So we're putting it on the west side of the street, right?
By the
How many
design.
homes are on the west side of the street?
4,
4.
yeah.
That's a huge cost for 4 homes.
It is.
Well, there'd be a side yard of a Pleasant Ridge home there too, across the
So
middle.
it's two side yards of, there would be a side yard of Pleasant Ridge,
Side yard
and
and
there's
2
a
front
side
yards.
yard of Timberline,
Yeah.
and then there's 4 homes
So you're
that
talking,
would be in the front, so there's 6
talking
properties.
6 residents to,
5? There's 5, Randy?
talking 6 residents to absorb $81,000.
5 residents.
5?
Yeah.
So I live on one corner, and we would only have the sidewalk on one side of our property.
Right, right.
Right.
And then the home across from us would also have it, but it would be their side rather than their front.
Have you had any discussions with those people at all that live across the street to the west from you?
On the side.
What their feelings are about this?
I have not.
Okay.
Only the neighbors behind them, because it's their children that go through my yard.
That's what I'm
Okay,
saying.
gotcha, thank you.
Sure.
And then Sarah, are you open to the,
These
the,
4
the private pay
would be the 4.
solution?
That has never been discussed. My husband and I have never discussed that because we didn't realize that that was part of it. But I think that we would strongly consider that and learning more about it, because like the 2 gentlemen that spoke before me, we really want this. So I would not say that we wouldn't not consider it.
You're a definite maybe.
Yes, a
fair
definite maybe.
Okay, I like that. Okay.
May I
Any,
go back?
of course, anything else? Any other questions for Sarah while she's up here?
No, this is my first time here, so
Well, come back and see us often. We meet every 2 weeks, so it's a lot of fun.
Snyder's house.
Anybody else? I know that guy. Get on up here, Doc. Name and address, Bry man.
My name is Doctor, I'm gonna call myself a doctor today. Dr. Brian Fleshner, I live at 125 Timberline Road with my lovely wife Scarlett. We're new to this
she is.
street. I've lived in Carroll my whole life, and I've done everything I can to live here my whole life, because I enjoy it so much. I'm sure some of you have seen me around town with my children biking. We constantly use roads and sidewalks around. One area where I really think the city made a good decision is on the east side of the golf course, putting new trails in there to make all the golfers mad. I think that was a great thing. It connects around the Little League fields, and that's awesome. I think that continuing that back into town on the west side of the golf course would be a fabulous idea, because it's still on the road there. I think that's a dangerous place. So I'd like maybe some future consideration on areas like that. When we can get someone to give away some or to sell some farmland over by Eastside Park, I'd love to see that trail continue from the Lutheran Church over towards Eastside Park. That'd be a great project if that can ever happen as well. I know you guys have tried to do that in the past. But I would like to represent the Timberline, maybe not everybody on Timberline, but it seems like we have a little bit different perspective on this project than the folks on Pleasant Ridge. I think that might be because of the differences between the roads. Pleasant Ridge is a much more traveled road for semi-traffic. There's already sidewalk there. I think that I would rather not have the sidewalk in my yard. I've thought a lot about it. Everyone on our street has. And there's been a lot of discussion between the homes that live on Timberline about it. I would like to tell you that I think that the curved sidewalk, I had just moved to that street right when that was being done. I didn't like the idea of it being there, but I will tell you that it was a good thing, I think, on that curve. And my family probably benefits from that more than any family in Carroll because of my kids and how much we go down to the park. That being said, I don't want it to go through my yard because it's more to take care of for me. It's more cost for me. I moved to the area to be kind of a little bit further away from everybody and to have a little bit larger yard. I guess that's kind of the thoughts that I wanted to bring to the council meeting tonight. I wanted to make sure someone from my road spoke up here tonight. I'm sure there might be others that do, but thank you for your consideration. Thanks for having us here and asking us questions about what we thought on the issue. Thank you.
Any questions for Brian while he's up here? Not so fast. Just in case anybody had any questions, Brian. Okay.
How many
Thanks,
homes,
guys.
no, Brian, how many homes are gonna be affected on this project on Timberline?
Well, it would be
Now, you're going all the way past, aren't you?
6.
You're going past Pleasant Ridge,
So it would be,
or you're going past Hidden Valley, aren't we?
it would be,
Are we going past Hidden Valley?
Yes, it's planned to go over to Prairie Ridge.
And that, this number reflects that.
Hawcaps, Fleschner's, Gratavilles, then the Riles, and then Munson's, and then also the corner,
Rita and
yeah.
Eckerman's,
yeah.
the Rita and Eckerman.
How many is it?
I'm right on the 5.
Yeah, that one's in.
It's 6.
Six. This one's in. It's 6, Brian.
6.
6.
6 homes.
Okay.
Are all 6 of those families sitting here saying no?
Is there a yes on any home on Timberline? John, you want?
No.
Okay, okay.
No, the people that aren't here have signed that petition.
Yeah, we've got a copy of it
And
up
the
here.
Curve, oh, go ahead.
One thing I would want to point out is, I don't think anyone petitioned that we did want a sidewalk on our road, at least. So I appreciate someone that would want it on Pleasant Ridge especially, but I think it's just a different situation on our road. But,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
It's becoming clearer by the day, the difference in the needs and so on. So, you know, John, do you want to say anything? I mean, you're up.
Yeah, I will just real quick.
Name, rank, and serial number, John.
135 Timberline Road, John Granville. Brian's got 4 kids, they live next door. With that curve, like Matt said, the curve just totally is 2 different situations. My mom lived on Pleasant Ridge forever. And the way that road has grown, when she moved there, actually it didn't even go to Grant Road. And you know, the curve that's just past the condos, that even has a slowing effect with cars, okay? And that's kind of what we have on Timberline. Now, I would never want anybody to be in harm's way of anything, you know, but we all know how many people are walking up and down our street. That's one thing we haven't seen. You did your study on how many cars and such, which I tried to tell my wife, take a left when you come out of the driveway when you have them. But no, she kept going right like 8 times a day, you know? But, so those numbers are wrong. But the thing about it is with that curve, you know, that Timberline, I mean, I wish we could put something that says no trucks and make them go down to Swan Lake Road and go around. And it's probably not legal. I mean, otherwise you guys would have done it, I'm sure.
Brad,
But-
is there a sign down there at all? On Pleasant Ridge?
Couldn't do it anyway.
No, you couldn't enforce
No,
it.
you just can't, you know? I don't know, could you put like speed bumps where trucks wouldn't like, the one truck I wish we could get off of that road is at like 6:45 every morning, the truck from the rendering works comes cruising through, which that happens to be when I'm going to work in the morning, and, you know, I walk into work and everybody goes, oh, got behind the render works truck again? But, I really don't think it's necessary on our road, I really don't, and as far as what's on Pleasant Ridge, I mean, can't we just find that in the budget just to put a sidewalk in? I mean, to me, that seems like it's really necessary for our town. That's all I got. Thank you.
Any questions for John while he's up? Okay. You know, Barry, I'll call you in just a second, but we'll only seek a motion if we're going to take an action. If we're not going to take an action, you know, then there won't be a motion for it. But can I at least draw some kind of consensus from the council, at least to take, you know, Timberline out of the discussion?
I would say take Timberline off the
or no?
road, or take Timberline off the road, take Timberline out of the mix, just for the fact, all these residents
That's what I
are in
wanted to
favor
do.
of it. And in Pleasant Ridge, 3 out of the 5 are.
I think you have to get a decision here. Are we gonna pay for it, or the people have to pay? I think that decision has to come first.
It's kind of a chicken and an egg
Yeah, I
kind
get
of thing.
that.
I feel the same way.
Because once you start doing this where you're paying it, my God, we got streets all over
Yeah.
by the aquatic
100%.
center
Right,
that we're
I
gonna have
know.
to pay for.
I mean, it's just.
It's gonna get out of control.
Yeah, and to John's point earlier, I mean, you heard it here first tonight, you know, we are only ankle deep in the fiscal year '24 budget. But this one, you hear it every year, it's gonna be a really challenging year for the council. It couldn't be any more true than it is today, because we're talking about the ravaging effects of inflation that's all on your homes and your families and your businesses. But think of what it does, you know, $1.5 million just to do 4 blocks worth of sewer. I mean, it's, and then we're also facing compensation issues. You know, COLA was 8.7% this year. If we don't take on any new real wants or desires, and just run our city services and just do our $4.8 million worth of payroll, we're looking at, a significant tax increase just by itself. And so, can we just fit it into our budget? I get that, and the council gets that too, but it's just gonna be a most challenging year in order to do those types of things. Now, when we're talking about private pay, then, that is something for you to decide, and we'll provide the engineering and the guidance on it. But if it is going, and that's to Laverne's point, we got to talk about how we're going to pay for this thing. And if it's going to be private pay, we have no decision. But if there's a belief that the council wants to move forward with this as a public pay type of thing, then we got to, figure the funding sources and exactly just how much of this we'll do.
Mark, could we hear everybody out?
Of
So we
course.
get the big picture
Sure.
of what's,
Yep.
before we make any
I just wanted to
decisions.
interject that at
Yes.
that time because it was brought
I think
up.
it's a little early yet.
Yep.
Before we hear anybody and
Perfect.
everybody.
Barry?
Thank you.
Good evening, Barry Bruner, live on Pleasant Ridge. Thank you very much for waiting till the end to have an attorney come. Do you want to take a break before I get started?
I was thinking set a
Tom,
timer,
don't
but
say
we'll not go
anything.
there.
Don't say anything. Sarah Stern was here for her husband. I'm here for my wife, Mary, so.
All right.
We should have worked together and maybe come up here together. Again, I'm Barry Bruner, and Mary and I live on East Pleasant Ridge, and we've been there for about 2 years. I'm speaking for Mary. She has a voice issue tonight with a respiratory infection. Otherwise, she'd love to be here. And if you know Mary, she'd hate to have somebody else saying what she'd really like to say. And so she gave me her thoughts. I'm her messenger. We have lived on Pleasant Ridge for 2 years, and we're blessed to have Mary's mom, who just happens to be sitting over there next to me, who lives right next door on the condos there on East Pleasant Ridge. One of the huge advantages that we've only discovered after our move was the accessibility of the sidewalks and the trails around our front door. Mary's confined to a wheelchair. Her power wheelchair has brought her a lot of independence. If you've been in the area, you may have seen Mary and Margaret on one of their daily walks. Margaret has to be careful because Mary's power wheelchair can go 7 miles an hour. So she normally walks behind her. So when Mary heard that there was discussion of completing a sidewalk to the end of Pleasant Ridge, Timberline, and Hidden Valley, and joining it to the new sidewalk that goes past Mary's mom's previous home on South Main, she was very excited. She started to talk with people in the neighborhood and along this road, and found that there were many who were in favor of expanding the sidewalk system in this area. Besides offering accessibility to those with disability, they offer safety to all of the young and not so young families in the neighborhood. It's very evident that there is much traffic along Pleasant Ridge. Also, if you follow Pleasant Ridge in a vehicle and travel up and down Timberline on that curve by that South Main, curve there, it can be very dangerous and scary in that area, and that sidewalk has been a good start. Children need a sidewalk to keep them safe in this area. Mary supports the project. It's in its entirety. She's heard many arguments that there isn't much traffic or people moving on those other streets. I don't know if that's true, and from what we travel on those streets, there's a lot of, and as Brian mentioned too, there are young kids and so forth using that sidewalk that's been put in on South Main. I think that this project is very, very important. I know Mary would be thrilled to be able to travel all the way around that area on her wheelchair. And I am submitting, and I'll give the original to Laura, I am submitting a petition with over 90 names
on it in favor of the project. That's the original one. And I'll just start it over here with Dan and the fire chief. Just grab one and take it. Sidewalks, streets, and planning are key pieces of quality of life that we have to look at. We're always gonna have issues, we're never gonna have enough money. But pieces and quality of life and safety are huge to communities this size, and especially communities in western Iowa. Trails, parks, recreational facilities, roads, schools, healthcare, and low crime rates. Now, should we have, as a community, plan for more sidewalk and street construction in the past? I don't know, maybe, but we're never gonna be a perfect community. Should we have, as a community, required developments or developers to study and plan for more of these safety issues? Maybe, but it is what it is right now, and we have issues in this part of town that is one of the fastest growing areas of our community. Thankfully, our community continues to grow, and we must now look at issues that weren't there when those houses were built. We're seeing dozens and dozens of houses built to the west of and south of these streets that we're talking about. So I'm gonna ask you, and I'll see how I did when I go back home in a few minutes, but I'm gonna ask you to look very hard at this possible project. I think it's vital for the safety. It's also vital for future development of our community. Do we want more homes? Do we want more developments? Yes, we do, and we need them. And this part of the community is a great connection to great areas for future development. So I think we really do need to look at this not only as a safety, not as only a piecemeal project, but a part of a huge plan for the future. Thank you again. And any questions, one way or the other?
Are you talking about the whole project or part of the project?
I am, yeah. I
The
think
whole
it's needed for that whole area that's growing to the west too. And then of course, south of East Pleasant Ridge, east and west.
And I also feel
I
like
think
Pleasant
it's-
Ridge has, I mean, people might just go down Pleasant Ridge and go down through the trail to go down to the park and stuff. As we said, like Timberline, the road is dangerous. I mean, I've gone down that hill, done 360s in the winter, even in a Suburban. It's a dangerous corner.
On
But-
Timberline, yeah.
No,
I
but
wouldn't
I'd
wanna-
rather not draw people on our street. Even that sidewalk, I went up the hill with a stroller and a bike is coming down the sidewalk. It about hit the stroller and me. I had to take, he didn't see me, I didn't see him, you know, it's like, it's only this wide, you know, it's not a trail, it's not the trail.
Well, maybe we should make them wider then.
Well, it's not the trail. No, but use your bikes on it too and just walk.
Barry, keep an eye on this. Barry.
You know, so I mean, it's like, where do you stop? I mean,
Yeah.
Timberline is a dangerous road. Truly, with or without a sidewalk. I think a sidewalk makes it
But the
more
problem-
dangerous
but people
because
don't
it's
need-
steeper in a curve.
and people, you know, we had 2 trick-or-treaters this year. I mean, people don't use our street. People don't walk on our street, except if we're just, we're not like Pleasant Ridge. We don't have the cars going by. We've lived there for 30 years.
Yeah, yeah.
We haven't seen that much of a greater increase in cars that drive by. You know, I don't know. We just,
It's my thought that it's part of a bigger
we also
picture.
have big front yards. People can walk on my grass as much as they want. I don't care. You know, we just don't see the expense as being worth it. I want to have better water in my house. My water pressure is horrible. You know, it's like, how do we get better water pressure?
I think sidewalks.
Yes, I would spend my
So-
money on water pressure, not
Let me
sidewalk.
get back to this.
Yeah, yep, thank you.
No, hold it. You got addresses on every one except the front page.
Phone number?
Yeah, we don't know where they live, where they're saying that they're okay with this. All the other ones we do.
It was in that area, but you can certainly get that.
Not even
Well-
on those. It's not to those.
Okay.
Must have been the first one that we did.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you too, Gary.
You know, our neighbors have
This
different
front
thoughts.
page or what?
They're in
I
the
appreciate
Timber
them.
Creek area. And Milligan's are on Pleasant Ridge.
So you're saying this front page is all Timber Creek people?
Most of them, and then some
You got
on,
a deal there
yeah.
saying that they're.
Yeah, and then Pleasant Ridge.
Pleasant
Tom
Ridge,
Schmidt's,
yeah, okay.
Pleasant Ridge, the rest Timber Creek. Yeah.
Well, we've certainly,
Would it be out of line to say that, I mean, sorry, this is just how I feel. We have a stadium, a rec center, et cetera, that doesn't have any sidewalks, well, not any, but a large portion of non-existent sidewalks. Is it out of line to say if you want a sidewalk, put in a sidewalk and provide them the specs and the council is relieved of forcing it? I mean, that's kind of where I'm at.
I'm gonna look, if I live on High Ridge, for example, and I want a sidewalk, now we're back in the same situation, then who pays for it?
Exactly.
And that's gonna be a heck of a lot more than the total of $260,000.
Exactly.
Randy, you and I spoke the other day about, we've been here a long time and we've had these sidewalk discussions 30 years ago. And there was discussion of mandating putting in sidewalks. Can you describe for the council how that would work if it was a mandatory program? Obviously, people would have the ability to self-pay, but for those that were against it, how does that process play out?
Okay, if it's mandatory, which the council has the authority to do, certainly one of the financing options can be special assessment. It's a procedure and it can be used for the construction of sidewalks. Addressing those historical sidewalk requirements, we have had 3 pretty major sidewalk retrofitting projects through the past, and there was no special assessment used on those. The property owners eventually all just paid to have the sidewalks put in. Now, there were some caveats to the cost for them. You know, in those projects, the cost to the property owner was the cost of a 4-foot sidewalk, the width of their lot. If there was any other work that needed to be done to build that sidewalk, the city paid for that. Driveway adjustments, the city paid. The property owner only paid for the 4-foot wide, the width of his lot. Now, I know there were at least 1 and possibly 2 instances where retaining walls had to be built, and the city paid for the cost of those retaining walls. So that was the kind of the help that the councils in the past had used to try to get sidewalks in. And those were pretty major projects. I mean, their sidewalks are in place now where we believe they should be, and everyone that looks at them believes there should have been a sidewalk there, but there wasn't. I mean, the council really wanted those routes to be built, and they're used a lot. Most of them are along arterial streets that have a lot of traffic, and you know, that's where they should be. To begin with, anyway.
Randy, when you talk about mandating sidewalks, can you pick just a certain road, say this Pleasant Ridge Road? You know, we've heard from 3 of the 5 people that it's gonna affect, which is really a majority. So can you use that road, for example, that a sidewalk is gonna be put in here? And it's, however it's paid?
Yeah, the council has that authority to require a sidewalk to be placed at any place in the city. Now, it takes a lot of consideration, you know, to do that, to force someone to put a sidewalk in. But then once that mandate is made, the options for paying for it, you know, range from the private pay to the assistance with financing, which under the state code can be special assessment or anything in between. You know, like councils of the past had done, limited certainly the cost to the property owner, not having to pay for those additional necessities that come about when you build a sidewalk.
Randy, in that scenario, if the council did make that decision, does the city put the sidewalk in then and bill the property owner, or do the property owner still put it in themselves?
It went both ways in the past projects. There was given the option for the property owner to put the sidewalk in. And then there did, I believe, there were a few that just didn't. I mean, whether they couldn't find a contractor or whatever. And I believe those were put in by the city and then billed to the property owner. The majority were done by individuals.
I think it's important to note all the people from Hidden Valley that have signed this also. And I just want to point out a few things. I have just a few pictures, and along with a map that I think are worth looking at. You can pass this around and get one to Laura. I agree with Dr. Fleschner said that once that sidewalk was in and going down to the trail, he's really been benefiting from it. And over the months after that was put in, I've talked to many people in the area. I know what people think on the street we live on. I went to the homes on Hidden Valley and talked to the residents there. The signatures are on the petition that Barry introduced. And a lot of people, as Barry said, live to the west where our development is and to the southeast. And there is still plenty of land to be developed. And so this is becoming a very busy spot for not only pedestrians but also cars. The car count you saw over those 2 weeks on Timberline, over 700, averaging over 700 a day. And people are mentioning that they don't want people on the road, it's so dangerous. Well, throughout my talking to many of the people, especially west of Timberline from Prairie View on, all those meandering streets, they also want to benefit. And they see the whole trail system from Pleasant Ridge on Hidden Valley and then on Timberline as one big project. That is, you cannot think of this as 3 separate streets. This is what people are telling me. I'd ask them, what do you pay? What do you think? What's the council going to do? I said, I don't know. But they want a high quality of life too, and they want to benefit just as Dr. Fleschner has benefited from this small area that really made that area safer. And for the people I talked to, the overriding issue is just safety. We want a safe route to the 2 parks and to the Sauk Rail Trail. And we were given this map earlier in April showing the trail, but I made a copy of a larger scale map showing just to show you the big picture and the context within which this sidewalk system, this safe route to 2 parks, to the Sauk Rail Trail, and the pressure that's being put on these streets due to all the development to the west and then the development to the southeast. And I will tell you, there are so many children in this area, and the parents are saying we want an entire safe route. People vary. They're walking, they're biking, they're jogging, etc., and they want to feel safe on Timberline. And I think they have a right to that, to their thoughts as far as wanting to be safe, given the traffic count, given also the hills and cars come over those hills quickly. I've been pulling out onto Timberline to head east, and a car will come over the ridge to my west, and they're upon you very quickly. And there are a lot of kids that are still using the street for biking. Now they have little scooters, and they're all over the place. They're going down these hills very fast. And so people, when you look at the bigger context, I marked the potential trail route, the whole route. People want access, they want safe access, and they want to be able to use Timberline, because from the west, they don't want to loop down and go all the way south and go on Pleasant Ridge. They want a safe route directly via Timberline to get to those parks and to get to the Sauk Rail Trail. And this map doesn't show very clearly all the little streets, but they're on this petition. The people who want the entire route done, because they fear for the safety of not only adults, but especially children who are in the area. These developments are going to continue to grow, and as they grow from the southeast in the Timber Creek area to the west of Prairie View, the hazards are going to grow also, and especially for the kids. There are only 16 residents that are impacted by the entire sidewalk project. We have the ability, and I think I'm leaning toward this because of what I've heard from the people in these developments who want this route safe. They want this done. They want it done all at once, and they want the city to get on it, because things are only going to get worse. So you have the traffic, you have all the kids, the adults wanting to use the route, and then we have problems with visibility as well as speeding issues on these streets, as you saw from the traffic count. So just to put this in perspective, you see all the pressure, way more people than the people who live on Timberline that would be affected, that I believe have a right to feel safe as they travel in their neighborhood to get to the destinations they want. I've taken pictures over, I don't know, several months. I had tons of them, but you can see this family. They're on our street, Timberline, and Hidden Valley a lot. They live down near the entrance to Rolling Hills. And you can see them, the little training wheels, etc. They're heading north on Hidden Valley. We received an email from a resident on Hidden Valley who has 3 kids, said that there are 50 to 100 cars going by her house every day, depending on the season. Then you see them going down the hill. This is one of the hills. They fly down the hills. Cars are coming off of Timberline. And again, a safety hazard. Here are people walking on Hidden Valley with their dog, heading up the hill, heading south. People use this entire route. They don't just use Pleasant Ridge. And they need the entire route to access where they want to go. And then here's a couple that walks every day this route, all 3 streets, and I came upon them, and here they are coming around off of Pleasant Ridge. So I mean, I think you need, as Barry stressed, to put this whole project in perspective and look at it as a safe route to our city parks, which all these people are paying their taxes for, and to the Sauk Rail Trail. Think of it as one safe, secure route that everyone of all ages can access. And we we do have the right under our city code as well as the Iowa code to mandate sidewalks. And I will tell you, doing it piecemeal is not going to guarantee people's safety. We need to do it all at once. That's what people are telling me. Get it done. Figure it out. I said, I'm sure we can. I don't know where we'll go with this, but we do have the right to mandate the construction of the sidewalks, and whether we assess or whatever, I think people are gonna be good with it, and I think the greater good outweighs a few people whose homes were built in the 70s when none of this development was going on to the west nor to the southeast. And another thing I think people don't realize, because I see it, I live it every day, little children, whether they're walking or biking, or now they have these scooters, they are moving among all these neighborhoods that you see on the larger scale. They're moving among the neighborhoods to get to their friends, to see their relatives, just to recreate. And they're using all 3 streets. And kids don't consider safety. I mean, they just go. So I'm all for looking into mandating construction of all 3 streets as we are, as our city code and the code of Iowa have laid out. And we need to work on it. And people have told me, please get this route done. Get it completed. Don't do it piecemeal because it's not going to solve the problem. So thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. Any other comments? That I almost thought I heard a motion there, but I'm not sure that that's what it was, but.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, but go ahead. Jeff, approach, please. Name, rank, and serial number, Jeff.
Yeah. Jeff Bolt, 212 Timberline, been there 30 years. And I 100% agree with safety and kids. Our kids all grew up there. I think Pleasant Ridge is a safe route. Timberline is not a safe route, even for cars. I can't tell you how many times I've come out of my driveway on an icy road. I've slid all the way down to the bottom with my brakes on and picked it up. Years ago, I don't know what that road is on the other side that goes back up. There was a major construction that leveled that out because you couldn't get back up that hill to turn to go. It's the same gradient. It's extremely steep. And to come down, and at least that was a straight road. If you wanted to go to the hospital, you couldn't go down and even get up that road. I can't tell you how many times I picked up Dr. McCabe on the bottom of the hill. Even after I saw him fall, took him back around and went back the other way because you couldn't get it even back up. So that they made that road way better, but coming down and on that hard curve, how many people on the end of that have crashed into the barriers, into that house on the end? If you put sidewalks or anything, you're gonna have more danger, more accidents from pedestrians, bikes, I don't care what, because Timberline is so extremely steep with that gradient and going down. I mean, if you really want to make it right, take out Dr. McCabe's old house, flatten that all out, make a gradual curve, I'm all for it. Putting those barriers on was a great idea. They had barriers previously that got hit so many times, they ended up taking out the barriers. So there wasn't anything there. And so that's how dangerous that curve coming around is. So I agree, but sidewalk, like my wife expressed, even going down with the baby stroller, it's a little bitty sidewalk, there's not a lot of room for big, kids go down that road, they come down flying 1,000,000 miles an hour, it's not safe. I think if we make more traffic, more sidewalk, more cars, it's gonna make it less safe. It's gonna be more of a hazard we wanna discourage it. I mean, even at that park where it goes around the curve at the bottom of the hill, I think there ought to be a couple of posts that bikes can't get around that says, no bikes, or something, so they can't. Because we've gone down that road, we live that road, we hike all the time. Kids come flying down that sidewalk, and I don't, Fleschner's, yeah, it's great. It's safe, but it's too skinny, it's too narrow. You've got a stroller and a kid and a little thing, it's just not a safe road. Do we wanna make more traffic on that road? I don't think so. I think the safest route is to encourage people to go down Pleasant Ridge and get that finished up as a nice route to go down, which is what I always go to the trails because I know it's safer, and exclude Timberline. I don't have anything against sidewalks or anything, but if you're gonna really make that safer on Timberline, you gotta take out McCabe's house and make that a gentle curve instead of a sharp curve. Like when it goes down after the rolling hills and it goes back up, how that used to be such a steep hill, and they flattened that out many years ago. You can get up that hill. Same thing, it's the same gradient. It's just too steep. For walking, biking, it's not even really that safe for cars. But don't encourage more people to go down that road. Encourage them to take other routes. And there are other routes.
Thanks, Jeff.
Like I say, experience.
Okay,
Thank you.
very good. Thank you, Jeff.
Questions?
Yeah, yeah.
Kate Radeville, 135 Timberline. I agree with Jeff as far as trying to make people come to our street and walk. I mean, there's plenty of ways to get to the trail. If you're on Pleasant Ridge, you can go down to the trail and you can walk the trail all the way to Swan Lake. You can walk it all the way to the landfill like I do. You know, I'm serious. There was 2 walkers today. We don't get more than 10 walkers on our street. And when you talk bikers, it's their kids. And this summer I saw maybe 4 or 5 boys that rode a couple times a day down our street to go to the park, and then they'd walk their bikes up the hill because you cannot get up our hill. People don't ride bikes on our street. I've never seen an adult besides Brian now with his kids. I don't see, like I said, Jen, you walk your dog. Occasionally I've seen Megan baiting, and there's been a handful of new people occasionally walk on our street. But to make us have a sidewalk that we don't want, I mean, I've lived on that street for 22 years. I moved there, and I remember when I moved there, I said to my husband, oh my God, I don't want to shovel that long driveway. He goes, well, at least we don't have a sidewalk that we have to worry about. I said, what about when we get older? Well, we don't have to worry about it. If we're gone for a month, there's no sidewalk for us to have to deal with, you know? We've got a long enough driveway we're gonna have to deal with. And you try and find somebody now to shovel, I mean, it's hard enough to find somebody to shovel your driveway, much less a sidewalk too. And then I have another point. I've walked for over 20 years with Carla Markway. I drive to her house on Main Street, and now we have started over the past years walking down to the landfill, the trail. I drive to her house, we leave from there, we go down Rolling Hills, which is a lot easier to walk up than our street. But before that, or in the winter or spring, when there's any kind of snow and you can't walk the trail, we leave her house, we walk all the way up Main Street into Applewood Knolls, to Randall Road, over to Northwest and back. Randall Road does not have a sidewalk. When we get on Main Street into Applewood, there's some areas where the sidewalks are bad. She and I walk the street on Main Street in Applewood Knolls. So now if you make us have a sidewalk, if I get 90 people from wherever, somewhere in town, wherever, to petition that we want a sidewalk on Randall Road, are you gonna go ahead and do that then? And my mom lives up on Mayberry, and High Ridge does not have a sidewalk, and she walks a lot up there. So if she gets 90 people to petition from what other neighborhoods are around, not our street, not that person's street, but you know, somebody might wanna walk over there, are you gonna make them put a sidewalk in and pay for it? Because I need to pay for a new driveway, I don't wanna pay for a sidewalk. It's a lot of money. And you're talking about, you guys can't afford it, well, neither can we. And I just don't think it's right. I don't think it's right. You guys all wrote, the new people wrote on being conservative and fiscally responsible. Well, where is that? That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Kay.
I want to-
Well, I think, oh, is there one more?
Yeah. My name's Sandra Ryerson. I live in 725 Prairie View Drive. My husband and I moved here 13 years ago from Denver. And we moved here because we wanted to tell our kids to go out and play and come home when it gets dark. So they do that. We're some of the people on their road. I'm sorry to hear that they are not interested in doing that, and I understand as their neighbor, I want to respect their wishes. I wish that they would, but if they don't, I respect that. I didn't realize it was a dangerous road. I came from People Lane, which is very hilly, so I guess I didn't see Timberlands being that hilly, but I'll take their word for it. But yeah, my son and his friends are on that road a lot, but we try to direct them other ways. I would really like to see Pleasant Ridge Road dealt with, and even as some way to connect from Rolling Hills to Pleasant Ridge Road, because there's a lot of houses out there and they want to use that road to get to Swan Lake. So my kids bike out there and fish with their friends. So it's a nice quality of life idea that I could get behind, but I'm not the one paying for it. So I just wanted to say that I did sign that petition, and I really listened to everything everyone said, and I think we have to honor. If the city can't afford to pay for it, I want to honor what my neighbors are saying. And I'm excited to hear that a lot of my neighbors on Pleasant Ridge Road would like to pay to do it. That's exciting, and I'm glad for that. That's all I say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Any questions for her? Okay.
No.
I think we've, you got one more. Go ahead, Jen.
You don't
Go
mind.
ahead. No, we're fine.
I'm Jennifer Munson. I'm at 221 Timberline Road. And I'm one of the handful of people that walk every day down Timberline. And, we've lived there 10 years, and I've never once had any issue on Timberline. It's a pretty wide street. We've all raised kids on Timberline, and I think that it was just our kids know that they are welcome to go in the grass if need be. And they don't ride bikes up and down the hill. It's too steep. So I don't really feel that there's a need for it there. I can count on one hand how many people I'm home during the day that walk up and down the street that I see. I do walk, like I said, our dogs every day, and there's lots of other streets that don't have sidewalks within a mile radius that I'm walking on the street at. Hillcrest, Southgate, between Westgate and Southdale, Ridgewood, Westgate, and Meadow Lane all don't have sidewalks, and they're within a mile radius towards that new development. We've had many traffic studies done in the last couple of years. We've been trying to get a stop sign on Hidden Valley and Timberline, and every study that we have done, they come back and say that there's not enough traffic there to have a stop sign. So I'm not sure why it doesn't warrant a stop sign, but it warrants a sidewalk. I don't understand that reasoning. Again, I've had no problems navigating that. I walk every day with the dogs, and there's not that much traffic on Timberline. I know that Rita's with me tonight, and she's one that would be affected both ways on Hidden Valley and Timberline. It's really hard to find people to scoop snow, we've found out, and it's gonna be really hard, especially for elderly residents that aren't able to do that on their own, to find that requirement. So, thank you for listening to us tonight.
Thank you, Jen.
I just want to make a few more comments about, I'll be brief. They talk about the gradient on that curve, that it's too steep to run or walk or bike. Kids do it all the time. I do it. And the gradient is steeper and longer on the trail, the Sauk Trail that runs behind our house, Milligan's house, etc. It is longer and steeper. And the picture of this family I showed you, they're on that longer and steeper gradient all the time, because they use Timberline, they go down to their house, they do the whole loop. And the thing is, they don't want more traffic on Timberline. Well, because of all the development, it's gonna happen. And I keep thinking, people are telling me it's unsafe on Timberline. To me, that is the biggest argument people gave me when I visited with dozens of them, that they want Timberline to be safe, especially for their children. So that it's not safe, to me, is counterintuitive to wanting to have a sidewalk, because they want to be separated from the traffic, which is heavy.
I don't think, that's not how I took that. I took that as they already recognize that that street is unsafe to the residents that live there, and by putting in a sidewalk, you're adding additional safety concerns by putting it in there. And you're inviting more people down there to have the exposure to.
What I see what you're saying, but the people that talked to me, JJ, said it will make it safer because then you're getting the kids, the pedestrians, the cyclists separated from the street. You're removing them from the street to get them out of the way of the vehicles. It's not safe for people to be on Timberline, walking, biking, etc. I mean, we read it in the emails.
Are you asking us to make a decision on something tonight, or were we just visiting about this? Because the only thing I'm going to say is shame on us for not putting sidewalks in our new homes, and I'm just curious if new areas are adding sidewalks. Now, are we mandating it? I'm gonna point that to Matt in the back, like, are we putting sidewalks in? Because I really don't want to do this again.
We're required,
I
as
mean-
far as the development agreement,
Yeah.
when we put a development in, it's either east or west or north or south.
Right.
So Randy picks a side and that's where they go in.
So-
When we build on the lots, if they're vacant lots, they're not
Right.
putting sidewalks.
I get it, but I'm just saying, like,
And you set it up
we
when
need
you
to
plan
not.
the neighborhood, you already know, so when people buy, like
Are we
my
making
brother
a decision
just built-
tonight?
I'd sure
he knew
like
there
to.
wasn't a
I mean,
sidewalk.
we've been discussing this for a year. And I mean, we can keep kicking the can down the road. Yeah, you know, it can, by this time next fall, it's gonna involve campaigns and politics.
And so if
I
we-
would just soon just make a
If
decision
we,
on it.
if we say we're gonna do this, and if we say we're gonna, even if we say we're gonna just push Hidden Valley and Pleasant Ridge, but there's anybody that doesn't wanna do it, I need to know from my people here, how are we gonna pay for the ones that don't wanna do it? That's what I wanna know.
Yeah, that was to Laverne's point, is, you know, we're
Are we
trying
gonna
to,
assess people, the 3 that don't wanna do it, or the 4 that don't wanna do it, or are we gonna do it?
We have to make.
if
I mean-
it's gonna be mandated, then we have
That's the
to,
hard decision.
I,
Now, you had
Easy
mentioned
for
that
me.
you got some growth. I'm looking at
Easy
this
for
map,
me.
Carol, and that growth's already there.
well, but we have infill lots that are being sold down by McFarland. We haven't
Yeah, but
dealt
that's not
with.
gonna affect, that's not gonna affect
Route to the
Timberline.
park.
You,
That's not gonna affect Timberline Drive.
that you wouldn't believe the kids that travel among these neighborhoods that do come up. They use our sidewalk, then it drops off, and they go west, then they use Hidden
Well, that's-
Valley,
I'm gonna-
pick up some kids. They're getting together, and then they go east to catch the parks. Yeah. They
Okay.
do. It's
all right.
just what they do.
We've pretty well talked this, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
think
I
we've
think
missed
so.
anything.
No,
If we have, the constituents will let us know.
that's right.
So what do you want from us?
Listen, I mean, I want to take, you know, make a decision on this thing, and I'm going to go back to Carolyn was close to making a motion, and if there's a motion on the table, I want to hear it, and if there's a second for it.
The
And
only thing is-
what's that
The only thing
motion?
is I'm gonna say is, we need to figure out who's paying for this
Yes.
first before
Wouldn't that be
any
part of the
decision's made.
motion?
Well, not necessarily, and I would like to see it broken down to 3 streets, because it could be an all or nothing thing. And
I
we
would
spent the
just like
last
to be, is the city
hour and a
paying
half.
for it or not?
The ci- yeah.
It doesn't matter which street,
Yeah.
is the city paying for it or not, because right now, I feel like they shouldn't, because
I'll make a motion
All
that the city
these-
does not pay for it, because if I live on High Ridge, now I want my sidewalk in.
Right.
Or if I want mine on, there's a street back behind Timberline that I just looked up on Hillcrest, there's no sidewalks there. Now we're gonna put in sidewalks there, so you open up a whole can of worms for the
Right.
city
I agree.
if you're paying for that, if we're
Correct.
paying for that,
So you're making a
taxpayers are
motion.
paying for that.
Well,
The development,
Second.
There's a motion.
okay, so the motion
oh, there is
was,
a motion.
so the
Just
city
said
was,
make a motion.
I understood that you're not gonna pay for it, but are you gonna mandate it?
The city not pay for it.
Because that was where she
That's-
was, and
We can
then
do that
if
after
it's a
that.
mandate, then it's not
It's
gonna
a
be
per-
city funded.
The
If
reason,
it's a mandate,
the reason I'm advocating
Mm-hmm.
for that is when I visited with people on Prairie View and West, there are sidewalks mandated on one side of all those streets. And they told me they had to pay for their sidewalks. I paid for mine. I'm with Marty and the others. And the people that want this whole system said they paid for theirs. Other people should pay for their sidewalks also.
But there's people in this system that don't want a sidewalk.
I
And then you
think
talk
the
about
greater
government
good
overreach of saying
and
that they have to pay for
I
it.
get it. A lot, you know what? I think sidewalks are basic
To-
infrastructure for safety.
Okay.
Needs to be done, yeah.
Randy, there's some, infrastructure in here, like, you see these boxes, what are they, electrical or whatever? Are they in the way on some of this?
They are in the way on some of
Who's
it,
gonna
yes.
pay to move those?
Those we would begin to, if you want to put the sidewalk in, we would begin discussions with the utility companies. Now, in general, overall terms, the utility companies occupy your right-of-way at your discretion. And they are to move when you have a public project that needs to be built in your right-of-way. Now, that's pretty much the overriding governing principle of it. We don't always move utilities. We try to work with them to go around them when we can. So those discussions, if you would say you want a sidewalk in any of the streets or all of them, then we would begin discussions with the utility companies to get that sidewalk in.
So they're going to pay.
No, that's the overriding requirement that they do. We as a city have historically tried to work with them to avoid their utility if we can. And that we would take a second look at.
But they're already there now.
Mhm.
So what happens? If we have to move those, what happens?
Pardon me?
Who's paying for that to move those utilities?
Well, if they're moved, the utility company has to pay for them.
They're in the, this would be a public improvement, therefore, it's their responsibility.
Just need a.
That's a part of why I'm advocating this whole system be approved and mandate that we want the sidewalks in and move on from there and figure out the legalities.
Kyle, would you restate your motion, please?
I'll restate my motion of the city not paying for it, and it's on the property owner.
I second.
That's what I was saying also.
Okay.
Well, let's get
So we
the vote.
have a motion that, I just
So
want
it's
to
a
make sure
little
how it's
confusing
going
because
to.
it's in our budget for next year, right?
It's,
That's why this is confusing.
No.
it's not
Not-
It's not
budgeted.
it, but it's,
No.
But
don't,
it's-
don't you have money set aside for this?
No.
JEO Kids
No.
did a
There's,
free study for us.
there's,
So it's just design, it's just
there's
there.
$15,000 in your current budget. That would have been for the design.
Okay,
But you got the design at no cost.
all right.
The rest of the money in the capital improvement program is tagged undetermined.
Determined.
$1.6 million undetermined.
Okay, all right, that's what it is. All right.
No,
All right.
180,000.
So we got a
What?
motion and a second.
Well, we already agree we're
Yeah,
not paying for it.
Yeah, so we have a motion and a second that the city would not be involved in funding sidewalks in this area.
All
Is that-
three streets, correct?
I don't know, that's why I'm
Yeah,
trying to.
all three streets, I mean, it just opens up a can of worms. Matt doesn't, Matt does a new development, he's gonna come to us and want us to pay for the sidewalks.
Yeah.
If I want my sidewalk replaced that's cracked and broken, are you gonna come pay for mine?
Yeah.
Or does it end?
For Laura's
Right.
benefit in the minutes, I want to know what the mission, and then what we're voting on. So we're clear on that?
Yep.
So there was a motion by Kyle, seconded by Tom, is that correct? Or JJ, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Could you
Ba-
read the entire motion one more time?
It'll
Read
be
the-
some, I don't have the exact wording, I'll
Well-
work on that tomorrow, but it basically you're voting on, is the city going to, or no, the city, there was a motion that the city will not pay the funding to install the sidewalks in this area.
Could you, since this is, we're talking about the 3 streets, I think those should be named.
Yes, I will list that in the
You
minutes.
will,
yes.
okay, so
Mhm.
that will be a
Mhm.
part, I just
Yep.
wanted to know.
Any other questions, further discussion? Back to the roll call, please.
Base,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Bordenaro,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes,
Shrek.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Okay. So now, is there, I want to get back to your point too.
Okay.
Is there a motion to mandate sidewalks?
I think you break that down per street.
I think we're all in. I mean, doing one part is not going to make the area safe, given the development that is taking place. You can say you don't want this street to be busy. It's going to be busy as more development occurs in Matt's area to the west and down by McFarland. So I will, so you want to know whether it should be mandated. I think my motion would be that we should pursue and get input. I'll keep it simple, that all 3 streets, this route, be mandated. And then we're going to have to check into the legalities. We're not paying for it as the first, but I want to include, it's a route, that all 3 streets are used. So I want to mandate that the sidewalks be constructed so this whole area is safe.
Okay. Is there a second to that? None yet? Motion fails then, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
I'll make one for Pleasant Ridge, because I feel that one needs to be done.
You're willing to mandate that
Yep.
on,
We have a majority of the people that are here that spoke up, stating that they wanted it.
we got.
And that's the
we got-
busiest road
We
in
got
that
2
area.
for sures, 1 maybe, and 2 unknowns.
So my only question is, are we going to start doing this around town? When people start coming to us and asking, are we going to mandate street by street? Because we have.
Neighbor by neighbor.
Because
or-
we have had this conversation, we started this a few years back when we started talking about what our sidewalk plan was going to be, and how we're going about doing it, and Randy would know more because it's been so long ago, I can't remember. But are we gonna get these at every meeting? Now that we're gonna have to choose to mandate or not mandate sidewalk by sidewalk? I mean, can you fill me in just a little bit before we make a second motion on, remind me where we're at with our sidewalk plan? That's really probably asking you to dig back, but what did we talk about?
It had been quite some time ago that the sidewalks were inventoried.
Yes.
And they never really got to a plan identifying the routes that you would want to select to make a continuous sidewalk route.
Okay.
That's what was done in the previous projects. It was a council goal at one time, and it was inventoried, but no action was taken on identifying
So
those.
what we have done was the ramps and stuff at the corners when we have come to replacing sidewalks. That is what we did for sure.
Yes.
That was part of our plan in sidewalks, so.
Yep.
I'm just
No,
curious.
as a side question to that is, we're also evaluating ones that need to be replaced currently that are bad. Isn't that part of that very same plan?
That was part of the plan and the reason for the inventory, and that has not been pursued
Okay, I'm with you.
at this point.
Right, I'm with you. Okay, thanks, Misty. Okay, so do you still have a motion to mandate sidewalks on Pleasant Ridge?
I'm for Pleasant Ridge.
I worry about mandating them.
Yeah. There needs to be a second for that.
Well, is this mandated? I guess this is my question, and maybe Randy can help. I know you can ask questions, but city constructed, when you say mandate, the city constructed? Or you're just going to work with the homeowners saying, hey, you need to put it in by yourself?
Yes, the way I understand it, the
Homeowner's
earlier
gonna do
motion
it
was,
way cheaper than we are. I mean,
yeah, but we're gonna make the engineering available to them. We get that.
yeah.
Okay, that's the route you're looking, okay.
That's the way I understood it,
Okay.
yeah. So there's a motion to mandate it,
On Pleasant Ridge.
yep, with private pay.
The reason I would probably go with Kyle is because that has been noted as the dangerous street. That would be the only reason I would mandate it. I haven't seen where Hidden Valley and Timberline are the dangerous streets.
Laverne, they are the same people that travel.
We're
that
hearing both
street.
sides, that's the problem, but we're only,
Yeah.
but on Pleasant Ridge, it's all one-sided.
I think anywhere you go and there's not a sidewalk, it's dangerous because your
Yes.
kids have to walk on the road. So I think anywhere you go that there's not a sidewalk, it's dangerous. So I don't know how we can say that just the two are more dangerous than the other.
Yeah.
What's more
mean,
dangerous,
I'm-
that
I'm-
road or High Ridge?
I'm torn all directions here.
A lot of traffic there.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
So we still have a motion. Is there a second? Going once? So that motion fails as well. So to make it clear to everybody, those that didn't want sidewalks, doesn't sound like there's gonna be sidewalks. Those that want sidewalks, you're free to do so at your own discretion with
Or
the
engineering.
city providing the engineering for that. Is that pretty
Randy,
clear?
if that happens and they're doing it on their own and utilities and power boxes and poles or whatever need to be moved, then we didn't mandate it for a public improvement, so do they pay then, since we're not
That's,
forcing the issue? Is that still like you don't know?
that's a question that'll have to be addressed, as we encounter. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It
'Cause
has to be.
Yeah, I noticed that some things needed to be removed, but trees were protected. I mean, it was a really good plan to accommodate homeowners, I thought,
Mhm. Yep.
and keeping it away from their property line. All sidewalks are in the public right of way. It's not on private property.
Mhm.
The city land.
Mhm.
Very well.
Oh, go ahead.
Are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you to everybody that commented tonight. We greatly appreciate your feedback. We do our very best to listen and act upon your wishes. Thank you. Item number 7B, almost lost my spot, is US 30 sanitary sewer extension. And just a second. I think I was gonna. Thank you. Randy? Item 7B is US 30 sanitary sewer extension change order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During construction of the US 30 sanitary sewer on the east side of town, there were some underground utility conditions encountered that impacted the proposed method of construction. The method of construction was open cut, and the section that was impacted was the first part from Griffith Road, about 125 feet east of Griffith Road. So it's coming right off the existing sewer, headed to the east. That was discussed with the contractor. We decided that the better alternative for construction in that area would be trenchless, a bore and jack under those utilities, instead of trying to dig around them. Their proposal back to the city was a cost of $668 per linear foot for that boring and jacking trenchless construction. That work was completed at a total cost of $65,350.44, and that is the amount that has been included in the change order to that contract. So unless there are any questions, I'd recommend your consideration of approval of that change order in that amount of $65,350.44.
Very good. Thank you, Randy. Any questions about this project and the change order and the requirements?
Were these utilities not noted when the project was originally looked at?
There were some of the, actually what happened, there was a design one call during the period of design. Those utilities that were provided information on were included in the plan. Shortly after the project was let, there was a one call made by the contractor to mark the utilities. And so they were marked, and there were more utilities marked at that time than had been provided in the plan preparation. To compound things worse, the contractor's marks faded, so he had it remarked before he went in to start digging, and there were more utilities than the first time painted on the ground or marked. And that's where red flags came up, that there were just more than you could reasonably dig through that were there. That's kind of the evolution of this
So
fiasco.
this one call I know for, like myself, if I call, doesn't cost me any money. Does this cost the city any money when we're having them come out to mark these?
No. Well, the city pays for each one call that is called in, and I think it's 90 cents per call, I believe. So the city does pay one call, but we don't pay the utilities to locate in the field. But that's just for the one call coordination.
So if he would not have called in and then these utilities were hit, is that on the city or is that on the contractor or is that on one call?
No, the requirement for the one call is on the contractor once he has the contract. Yes.
Okay.
Good questions, though, Kyle.
How do you get to a situation where you stop having a $65,000 change order?
Well, the other thing too is, I mean, a portion of this cost wasn't it proportioned out to our person that requested it out there? Didn't they pay so much per so many?
8 cents a square, or 8 cents a foot or something?
And that was based on what we thought we were gonna pay, but now we're in deeper.
That number, the square footage number, was arrived at not even really based on the cost of the project. That was a number that was, I guess, negotiated. And it's a reasonable number, but storm sewer, or this sanitary sewer cost was higher than that. But to your question of getting away from these, we do everything we can to try to avoid change orders, obviously. But in underground construction, Sometimes they're just there. I mean, you just can't avoid them. Now, this one, you know, the vast majority of the sewer went in, they dug around the utilities, they dug through a couple tile lines, which they had to replace. Those things are just normal during construction. But this was, and I guess I don't like change orders better than anybody else, but I like to get the work done. And in the contractor's defense, this was an unusual amount of utilities buried in that corner. I mean, everything was in that corner, plus multiple telephone lines. And we don't like it either. But to get the job done, we thought this was the best way to move it, to get it constructed. So, yeah, I agree, you know, with everyone. Nobody likes change orders, and we try to avoid them. But there are times, and probably frequent, that underground construction, you just don't know, you know. And it can be a soft trench, it can be utilities. Those things are realities of construction, I guess. The contractor is responsible for some of them, but not necessarily all of them, those costs.
How many times did you say One Call went out there and marked this?
They marked it, I believe, 3 times.
And nobody noticed it all 3 of those times? How bad it was?
It was different every time.
Okay.
Okay, we picked up their first marks and plotted them on the plan. Contractor had nothing to do with that. That's a design issue. Contractor made his first One Call, saw the utilities, we all saw them. And they were, you know, they're bad, but not undoable. Those marks faded before the contractor began working in that section. You know, he built the east section first and then came back to this one. Had a new One Call made to remark them. And there were even more utilities marked in the third One Call than there were in the other 2. And that's when the red flag came up, that this is a lot of utilities in a little space. The practicality of digging around them wasn't there. I mean, in effect.
Randy, does that help you with other projects to the east or to the west by knowing there's an unusual number running through that area then?
Well, these are concentrated in this area for some reason, and they're fairly local. I mean, there's a lot of utilities run along Highway 30, but we were able to build, you know, 1,200 feet of this sewer or 1,400 feet of this sewer with no problems, just working around utilities. But there was 125 feet that it would just where they all came together in that, it's in the corner, in the south east corner of Griffith Road and Highway 30. And everything came into that corner. You know, just on the, it's on the northwest corner of Pell property is where this actually is. And there's pedestals, and we even have our traffic signal wiring in there too. So.
Any other questions for Andy? Andy?
This was for 125 feet, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So did the city get credit for the 125 feet they didn't have to dig?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was originally 120, wasn't it? Yeah.
There was a, yeah, I guess to respond to that and clarify for you, the construction of the sewer in open cut was bid at $170 a foot, linear foot. Now this 125 actually is a little less than that, but between manholes is 125 feet. The boring part of that was this change order is for $668 a linear foot. So the city did not pay the 170 per linear foot for that section, but substituted the 668. If that's in, it's not much consolation, but that's just the way it should be. I mean, we didn't pay for the open cut because they didn't build the open cut.
Okay, so you heard the recommendation to approve the change order, the amount of $65,350.44. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Kyle and seconded by Tom. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Shrek?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Cordero?
Yes.
Base?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Okay, we are getting towards, okay, Laura, I think you're back up for the 7th amended, restated urban renewal plan for the amended and restated central business district. Go ahead.
So actually tonight, I'm not actually looking for an actual motion and a decision on this item, just some direction though, because there will be an action item then planned for next council meeting. So for the past several years, council has approved separate resolutions that created an interfund loan, either between the water or the sewer funds, to loan money to a capital project fund to complete a particular capital project in the downtown urban renewal area, or what we have nicknamed that. A map is displayed up here of outlining that whole area. Just a little bit of background, it originally started more down in this part of the downtown area here and has since expanded since then, and to include a number of other items as time has gone on. The downtown one was actually established like back in the 1960s. Well, as of this point, there is roughly 382,000 of estimated TIF to be collected in the downtown urban renewal area to pay off any existing loans or in this area. So, and the area typically, we've ranged anywhere over the past 3 years of collecting somewhere around 950,000 to just over $1 million in TIF in this area. So if you look at the number difference, if we do not create another interfund loan, we will not be collecting all the amount of TIF that could be generated in this area next fiscal year. One of the ideas, what was included with the packet of information was a listing of different projects, because you are only allowed to spend TIF collections on projects that are listed in your urban renewal plan. So that was included with this agenda item, was a listing that is in our current plan. One of the items that is in there that at this point looks like a very reasonable option would be to do an interfund loan with the sewer fund, or from the sewer fund, to help fund the Adams Street reconstruction project that is scheduled to be constructed next year. So I'm looking for council's thoughts, ideas, if they're in agreement with that proposal. And if that's the case, then an interfund loan resolution would be presented at the next council meeting to do that.
And Laura, there's a December 1 deadline, right?
There is a December 1 deadline too. Yes, thank you for bringing that up, to file this with the county auditor so that we can continue to collect the TIF in the area for next fiscal year.
Yeah, we don't want to lose out on that. I don't think.
Then as time goes on, we can continue to discuss other projects in the planning stages. It'll be anticipated that the amount of borrowing will get paid back over a 2 fiscal year time frame. So we'll be looking at another project in the very near future.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, got consensus?
Yep,
Okay,
I'm
I will
good
bring
with
back
it.
something at next
Made
council
it
meeting.
simple, easy
Yeah.
to understand.
Okay, thank
Pretty
you.
good?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so we will move to item D, under 7D, and the goal setting, strategic planning session report. Jeff, I turn that over to you.
Yeah, when I wrote this memo originally, we looked at I think it's on page 23, the 15 items that were voted on by the mayor and council. And the top item was 6 votes, the second was 4, and then there were 4 that were tied at 3. And if you'll recall, when we discussed that night, there was discussion that we wanted to reduce the overall number so that it was more realistic, that we could focus more on quality than quantity. after I sent the memo out, I started looking at it again. If I'm correct, I think there were six council members and the mayor voting. So in theory, the only two items that made the list were the 6 votes and the 4. The next 4 that tied with 3 votes each didn't even get 50% of the vote. So I guess what we would like to know from the council tonight is, are you satisfied with those 2? Do you want to tack a couple others on there? Or where would you like to go with this? Again, I think that's on page 23, the items that you voted on that night.
Well, Jeff, I would just also interject with that those would be new initiatives. We still would have all the ongoings that we're continuing to work on as well.
I would say just the top 2. Get the rest of them off.
Yep.
We have enough to, even
Good.
just on that implementing pay scale for employees is gonna be such a big animal.
Yeah.
That I don't even, I mean, you're looking at, how long do you think that's gonna take? To go over every department and sort this out? That's just immense as far as I'm concerned. From the stuff I've gone through, it's huge.
The only one I'd like to think about is the wastewater treatment chloride. Randy, that would be something that you would be on?
Yes.
And then the implementation of employees, Randy wouldn't be involved in that, correct? That would be you, Jeff?
It's gonna be Laura and I, more likely Laura and I and Joellen, even meeting with Joellen.
Yeah. And the thing is 2027, this thing's coming up, and when we went to Washington DC, we got a guy from Kansas City that's willing to help with us. And I'd hate to take a year away and not stay with that, is what I'm saying.
Randy, can you talk about that timeline? We had a discussion, somebody today, I don't remember who, but we're gonna start the planning process now, but what's the timeline moving forward, ending at 2027? Can you talk about that? I assume you're gonna do a plan and find out what needs to be done, then develop that in construction?
Yeah, we would start with trying to analyze the entire wastewater system in order to, first of all, see if we can find a smoking gun. I mean, if there's one location out there that's contributing selenium, and then work directly with that. Now, we did that same thing with copper, and of course, the results of that were there was no smoking gun. Copper's coming from everywhere in the system. And in all practicality, that's what you'll find with chloride. But the other 2 metals, selenium and thallium, they're pretty unique metals. They just don't occur everywhere. So the first effort will be to analyze to see if we can locate that smoking gun. If it's located, certainly work directly with that contributor. If not, it would be the same as copper. Then we go in to try whatever alternatives we can to, first of all, get the effluent limit raised, which we are working with copper right now doing. And failing that, then we begin to look at the improvements that are needed to comply with that. And, and you've got copper, you've got nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and in all practicality, there may be some capital construction associated with the nitrogen and phosphorus. Hopefully not the copper. We're working as hard as we can to get that limit changed. Selenium and thallium are metals like copper is. Very difficult for a biological treatment plant to remove metals. It's really expensive capital construction to do that. And with chlorides, actually chlorides cannot be removed. Once they're in the water, they're in it. It's a dissolved, not a metal, but a constituent that really can't be removed at a wastewater treatment plant. So that will be looked at in that light to try to bring something forward to you to comply with that limit. So there's a lot of legwork to do by that 27, and it'll probably begin. I mean, it's listed here in the goals. I don't think you have a choice. I mean, it's going to be done. And we'll just do it as a part of management in progress.
Can I answer your question?
Well, I just hate to put a year delay on it.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
So I think what
Yeah, I
I'm
think-
saying is we need to keep that
Yeah, I
one
think
on.
Randy's saying he's gonna
He's
keep
gonna
moving
do
through
it
it, and that it's probably more,
MIP.
moving it to, it's probably more correct to have it on the MIP list instead of a new initiative.
Okay.
So we can definitely make that change and then, you know, accept the report.
So will we bring this report back for final approval, or are we gonna do that tonight, or what's the plan?
That's up to council. If they're fine with, like, I'm gonna call that a small change, making that move, we can move that, and then it becomes the final plan, unless there's a
Yeah,
other major
I'm good
changes.
with that.
Where are you calling cutoff again?
Well, the top two, and then we would amend it to include to the wastewater.
And why are you cutting it off at the top two versus
Well, they're the
going
only
down
one-
to,
they're
versus
the only
going
ones
down
that-
to the threes?
They're the only ones that drew a majority.
There were only 3 out of 7 votes for those 4. So it's like,
Not even
they
50%
didn't
of
hit
people.
50%.
Yeah, but that's just to get it on here. Now we can decide from here as a council.
Right.
We don't have to look at just number 6 and number 4.
Well, and that basically is what the memo said, is look at the other things, and if there's things you want to elevate up the list,
Yeah,
now's
yeah.
the time to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I just wouldn't want to see 4 hours of work 2 weeks ago go for naught.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, then
I
why
mean,
do it?
to me, it's, you know, those top two, and then just amend it for the MIP, for the wastewater, and everything else is, I mean, yeah, I guess you can always bring it as an agenda item, I suppose, but, I mean, as far as what our new initiatives are, and properly stated, if we're gonna follow the process, it needs to be those top two.
Well, we have 29 items in management in progress. I mean, they have their plates full.
Ongoing.
Yeah.
So would I seek a motion to approve the strategic plan? And do we necessarily need to identify the top two and move the third one in, or just accept it?
Well, when we can move the wastewater to the management in progress, if that's agreeable to the council, we'll make that amendment and
Okay.
approve the plan with that
Okay.
change.
Mhm.
So is there a motion to approve or to approve the receipt of the goal-setting strategic planning session report?
So moved.
There's a motion by Tom,
Second.
second by JJ. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bornero,
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Schreck.
Yes.
Seaman.
Yes.
Base.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Committee reports, none. Comments from the mayor, I have none. Comments from the city council? Not tonight. Comments from the interim city manager?
I just have one. I handed out a proposed budget schedule for January. We're hoping to bring this to the council at the next meeting for approval. So we're asking you to check your calendars between now and the next council meeting to see if you have any major conflicts. We talked with the mayor on Friday, I think it was. We're not thinking we're gonna have to call in all those outside agencies again unless there's a major change in their request, which may shorten us to 2 or 3 nights, we don't know, but we've planned for 4 just in case. But check your schedules and then let Laura know between now and the next meeting if there are any conflicts on that, and we'll bring it back for your formal approval then.
I looked at it, I'm good.
So there's your council meeting,
I'm trying to
Yep.
fit it into my busy schedule.
12 and 9, and 10.
You and me both,
Yeah.
huh?
Okay, thank you, Jeff. So we are moving to item number 12, which is closed session pursuant to Iowa Code 20.17, Part 3, and 21.9. Is there a motion to go into closed session? You want to go potty break?
Small break?
Oh, well, let's
I-
take our motion first and then we'll.
I was
do
gonna,
all the regs.
yeah, I was gonna get there, but yeah. Okay, is there a motion to go into closed session then,
So moved.
please?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by JJ, second by Kyle. And any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Shrek?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Base?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Motion is approved.